In 76 days, BYU basketball tips off the most anticipated season in program history. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the most anticipated season. BYU will enter next year, I would expect, as a top 10 team. I would be surprised if they are outside the AP top 25, top 10 heading into the year. And 76 days from now, they will take on the Villanova Wildcats in Las Vegas to tip off this season. So much anticipation, so many expectations for this group, which is, to me, the most talented, deep roster that BYU basketball has ever assembled going into a year. There's been some great teams. You go back to 81 with Danny Ainge, Greg Kite, Jimmer Fredette, Brandon Davies, even last year. But there is no doubt in my mind with this roster, when you look at it on your PDF, on a paper, this thing looks incredible. The size, the athleticism, the shot-making ability, the versatility with lineups, the groupings that Kevin Young has at his disposal with this 15-man roster. It's impressive, man. And the sky is truly the limit for BYU basketball. And never have I been able to say going into a BYU basketball season that this group could be, going into a year, the best team in college basketball. They've got that potential, and it's a special group, and they're looking to build and become something great this season. They just wrapped up summer practices last week, a little bit of a break now before they, get back to classes and get ready for the grind that will be the upcoming season. But 76 days from now, they tip off the season. Guys like Rob Wright were taking a little bit of a break. They're down in Florida. He was getting some rest and relaxation on the beach. Saw that on his social media yesterday. Much needed because they went through the grind of summer practices, and now it's time to rest a little bit. And with the rest, it also gave a chance for Kevin Young to hop on the KSL Sports Zone. He spoke with DJ and PK and discussed some of his top focuses during summer practices that just concluded. This was Kevin Young on the KSL Sports Zone.
Well, number one, we've had guys in on campus, all summer early. We even had some guys in for the spring, which was awesome. I think there's a lot I think that helps us be better there. Number one, continuity just from a staff perspective. There's a lot less guesswork in terms of what we want to do, what we want to, I think, be about on both sides of the ball, particularly defensively. There's a lot more clarity for me. So I think that's a big part of it. But really, man, just trying to get these guys to this particular group of talent to come together, and that's really what our summer has been focused on. Less, elbow here, right foot there, this type of specific coaching. It's concepts, continuity, and let these guys play, right, and try to get these guys to come together. That is going to be the most important thing for this group. And a large part of that goes into, why we put this particular group together. We felt like in the intel work that we did on all these guys that, it's guys that are good people that we felt like we could really have them all come together. That's a big part of it, especially when you're going this year to year. You bring in one bad apple and the whole cart goes to rot. And so we tried to make sure we avoided that, but we'll see. I mean, that topic is the one that I probably spend the most time thinking about, is how we can get this group to play together.
It's a fascinating conversation, and that is classic Kevin Young right there. Simple yet profound and detailed in his answers, and how he brings this all together will be quite the accomplishment for Kevin Young if he can get them all on the same page, moving into one direction to chase something great, because this team's got the talent to go to the Final Four. There's no doubt in my mind. When you look at this roster, this 15-man roster that they've got, this is a loaded team. They have very few limitations in front of them. Maybe you could say a little bit of the height in the front court, but you still got a true freshman in Xavier Staten who's a 7-footer in that second unit behind Keba Keita. And Keba Keita, yeah, he's only 6'8", but he's as explosive of a big man as you'll find in the sport. There's very few weaknesses to this team, but bringing it all together, it's a expensive roster to bring this thing together. How does it all mesh? I thought that was interesting commentary from Kevin Young. You can listen to that full interview up on KSLSports.com. But to me, it's really the fascinating piece to this team because three-point shooting, they got it. You know, I still wonder about how it's going to come together defensively. Kevin Young noted in that clip that he feels pretty good about where they stand defensively coming out of summer. This is a highly competitive team. This is going to be a group that is truly relentless. And I'm curious to see how they come together defensively because last year's group, I thought there were some issues there. That was not the strength of last year's team. The Alabama game being an exception, I thought that was just a historic night by the Crimson Tide. But defensively, there were problems for BYU last year. And can they become an excellent defensive team? I think they got to be one of the best defensive teams in college basketball if they truly want to climb the Werner ladder and cut down the nets in Indianapolis next year. But when I look at this roster, and then I kind of dive deep into what I think the starting lineup's going to be, I feel like it's almost self-explanatory what the starting five should be. Now, I think there are some intriguing options that could definitely emerge, but as time is going on and with summer practices now in the rearview mirror, I feel like this is the starting five for BYU basketball 76 days from now when they open it up against Villanova. You go with Rob Wright. I can't wait to see this guy. I mean, Rob Wright comes in from Baylor, averaged 11.5 points per game, and I thought he was getting better over the course of the back half of the season. And there were games where even with a roster that featured VJ Edgecombe, who's now a Philadelphia 76er, Rob Wright lifted that team to get them over the hump. And that was a team battling to just get into the NCAA tournament. He had 50% true shooting percentage last year. Excellent inside the paint as well is Rob Wright. His ability to create and get to the rim, fantastic. I mean, it's been fun to watch his 1v1s on Twitch with players. You can just see the incredible shot-making ability that he has inside the paint, the creativity he has. He's going to be elite in that regard, and I'm fascinated to see how Kevin Young utilizes him, but he's clearly going to be in the starting lineup. I think at the number 2 spot, and look, I know KY doesn't get caught up in the positions, and they got to be the 2. This is a 3, but this is kind of the collection that I kind of look at right now. Kennard, Moo, Davis. Now, I don't want to rule out Dawson Baker. I think Dawson Baker is a shot maker, and he's a guy that can get a bucket at any time. But Kennard, Moo, Davis, they call him Moo on the team. He's going to bring that element defensively that maybe this group has missed in the past, the program missed rather. But then you look at the numbers he had offensively at Southern Illinois last year. He averaged 16.3 points per game. 16.3. Now, he's not going to be expected to do that. But Kevin Young's going to have the ability, like last year, where it could be a handful of guys. Maybe one night it's DeBonsa. Maybe one night it's Richie. Maybe one night it's Rob Wright. Maybe one night it's Kennard Davis. 16.3 points per game last year at Southern Illinois. He knocked down 45% of his shots from the field. He had a 57% true shooting percentage. He was one of the top players in the Missouri Valley last year. It's kind of an addition that has been slept on, I think, nationally because of the star power of DeBonsa, the returning star power of Richie Saunders, Rob Wright. But Moo Davis, I am fascinated to see what he can become this season in this team with Kevin Young. Huge addition. It feels like he's kind of destined to be in that starting 5 for BYU. And then Richie Saunders. He should be an All-American candidate. Richie Saunders is going to be elite shooting the rock this year. And look, we know too, defensively, he brings it on that end too. That was one of the underrated aspects to Richie last season. Not only was he huge and one of the best players in the Big 12 last season, particularly on the offensive end, but he did not sacrifice his intensity on the defensive end. You know, sometimes you'll see guys where they increase their workload on the offensive side. That's what's needed. But yet maybe they sacrifice a little bit on the defensive side. Not Richie. That same motor, that same relentless effort, you kind of saw that a lot with him last year. And 43% from 3, when you've got the talent around him in this starting 5 potentially, could he be a 50% three-point shooter? Maybe that's a little bit too high, but I just feel he's going to have so many open shots. It's pick your poison with this team. If he stays healthy, man, he's going to be due for a big, big year. And then the number one guy, the number one recruit, A.J. DeBonsa, comes in. He's going to be in that starting five. No doubt about that. And he's got to be a leader. Just like Richie Saunders is a leader, him, Richie, and A.J. got to lead this team. And when Kevin Young talks about bringing these guys to play together well, Richie and A.J. have got to lead this group. And A.J. DeBonsa's intensity, his competitiveness. I remember watching games when he was at Utah Prep, and when somebody thought they had an inch on him, he just then teed off and went off on guys. And I can't wait to see the type of generational talent he is and what he can become at BYU. Kevin Young talked in that interview about the representation of just how he's just proud to be at BYU. He's wearing the BYU logo everywhere. He's fitting well into the culture of the program. It's a good sign so far. And I think it's just hard for Cougar fans to wrap their mind truly about the level, the magnitude of a prospect that he is. I still go back to, it was last year at this time. August 2024 was the first time I watched A.J. DeBonsa. I saw him in Utah Prep, Hurricane, in person, and this was just a scrimmage. And I think it was Anthony Falesi who had a play, a dunk, a putback dunk on A.J. Not good for Falesi. That just set DeBonsa off. He goes coast to coast with a hammer jam. That the intensity of DeBonsa is just off the charts, man. And I think that intensity, I'm curious to see how his teammates respond to that level of commitment to the craft. He's all ball. I mean, that is his purpose, is to ball and to do it at a high level. So that will be so intriguing to see. And then the fifth player in this starting five is Keita. And, you know, he's going to be, as I noted, 6'8", a little bit undersized for what you maybe want in an ideal five, but he is so explosive. In those games last year in non-conference against, you know, these sub-200, sub-300 teams, he's just walking away with ease, 13, 14 rebounds, just easily. Last year, he ends up with 7.4 points per game, 7.9 rebounds, and an effective 67% from the field. So when he shoots, he's picking his spots and he's knocking them down. Typically, you know, getting at the rim, putbacks, alley-oops. But the efficiency is there with Keita on the offensive end, and he is a force on the glass. You know, the rest of the roster, I'm really intrigued by guys like Tyler Moross. It's been fun to see some of those uncut videos on this BYU basketball team, the role that he's having. 38% three-point shooter at Idaho last season. He averaged 9.7 points per game, one of the best shooters in the Big Sky Conference a year ago. Another guy, too, Hadim Mbop. You know, he joined the program last year. What leap does he take now with a full year in the program? You talk about measurables and size. I got to think there's a way to get him on the floor somehow, some way. And then Dominic Diomande. Dominic Diomande, I just find to be fascinating because he can play he's a 3-and-D guy. He can play a handful of positions on the floor. He can do so many different things for BYU, but we haven't really seen him in college basketball. But he was a guy that was getting a little bit of NBA interest, reportedly, before he signed with Washington, and now he's at BYU, and he was a prospect that Kevin Young and his staff were, you know, pursuing a little bit before he committed to Washington, and then he hits the portal and he lands at BYU. So there's a lot to like on this roster. And then Xavion Statton. What does Xavion Statton's role become? I think it's going to be bigger than we think. I think he's progressing well. Him and AJ arriving in late April, that seemed like that was huge. To give them a puncher's chance. Well, Xavion, you know AJ's going to be doing his thing, but Xavion, to give him a chance to really settle in and find his niche in the program and carve out a consistent role night after night. His length is undeniable, and there's got to be some consistent minutes for him to make an impact for this team. But there are not many weaknesses on this squad at all, and it is an exciting time for BYU basketball. We're going to be covering this team in depth throughout the year. We'll have you covered here on Cougar Tracks, talking BYU hoops. And, of course, you can listen to all the games of BYU basketball on KSL NewsRadio. 76 days from now, BYU tips off the 2025-26 season against the Villanova Wildcats, and we'll have you covered here on KSLSports.com.